Oh, look at you, back again, huh? Good for you. I know it's been a while. That's the downside of being a busy working man and part-time podcaster. I mean, besides the downside of making no money. Rest in peace, Ray Liotta, right? Am I right? Come on. Ray Liotta, star of one of the greatest movies of all time, Heartbreakers, with Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt. Fantastic movie. Just fantastic. Jennifer Love Hewitt looked fantastic in that movie, but so did Sigourney Weaver. And she was on the wrong side of 40 for Hollywood. Great movie. Gene Hackman was in it. All-star cast. Yeah, rest in peace, Ray Liotta. Today is June 10th, 2022. Thank you so much for all the nice comments from the last couple of episodes. They were tough episodes to do. If you didn't shed a tear during the last one, you should probably ask yourself why. A lot of people enjoyed the Robert Kennedy speech from 2 episodes ago. One listener asked me how I choose clips. Let me explain how it goes, because it's pretty involved. I go on the internet looking for one thing, and I end up using something completely different. That's pretty much how it goes. That's pretty much how I come up with these clips. When I decided to use that Robert Kennedy speech, I went on looking for a particular quote. I wanted to find a particular quote. That took me to different great quotes, which then led me to different great speeches, which then led me to the Robert Kennedy speech. That's how I chose it. That's how I picked it. I wasn't looking for that. And that pretty much is how it goes all the time. Can you turn this down? Are these the only words in this song? Turn it down. Yeah, when it comes to choosing clips, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's what I stumble across. It's what I think sounds good. Sometimes I don't even know a clip is appropriate until someone listens to the show and tells me the clip was appropriate. I've used clips that I thought I was using for one reason, and then someone goes, oh, that was just a perfect clip to use under the circumstances. And I go, oh, right, yeah, that's why I used it. I was considering taking some of the Obama town hall, the gun town hall he did. I think it was called Obama Guns in America. I would recommend you go watch that town hall, at least the clips of it, short clips of it. I was considering taking some clips, taking the entire show and trying to condense it down. It's like an hour and a half long town hall. And I was going to see if I could condense it down to around 20 or 30 minutes and put it up as a separate show for people to listen to, because it was an excellent, excellent town hall. But the problem is, you know how Obama talks. He's got all those long, long pauses as he speaks. And so if you try and just went and listen to the whole thing, it's hard. It's hard to listen to the whole thing. You know Obama. You can go up to Obama and say, President Obama, could you tell me what time it is? And a half hour later, he's standing there going, and so that's why fundamentally, as Americans, we recognize ante-meridian or AM and post-meridian or PM. And that's what makes it about 3:45. Dang it, Obama, I missed my plane. So, yeah, it's tough to listen to Obama and clips of Obama. I was going to try and condense them down. I'm not going to do it. I got things to do. I recommend you go and look at clips of the Obama town hall. He basically packed the room. It's from 6 years ago, but he basically packed the room with people who disagreed with him on guns and let them fire all the questions they wanted at him. And he gave the answers, and he gave excellent answers. They're the same questions being asked today. Same exact questions being asked today have to be answered over again. And it's some of the same answers. But Obama did a good job of dealing with some of the, how should I put it, misinformation that's put out about Democrats and their positions on guns. He did a better job than most at answering that. And I wonder, how come Obama is better at it than most? How come Obama seems to have a knack for answering some of these questions in a way that doesn't offend people, doesn't immediately make people just put up their defenses, but gives it to them straight and gives them the answer that they need to hear? Not the answer they want to hear, the answer they need to hear. How come Obama can do it, but not a lot of other Democrats can? And I've heard all the profound arguments. I've heard all the Republican talking points torn down one by Eric Swalwell. He did a good job. I heard Matthew McConaughey speak, Uvalde native. I wonder, too, why the heck is Matthew McConaughey in the White House press briefing room? But once they said, oh, he's from Uvalde, okay. I heard he did a pretty good job. I didn't see it, but even Fox News seemed to be saying Matthew McConaughey did a good job. So there are some people who come out and speak and can do a good job. But for the most part, Democrats seem to always lose on issues that they should not lose on. Why is that? I wonder, why is that? I think I have the answer for you. And before I say this, don't expect this to be some kind of revelation, because I don't know that people haven't said this before. Again, we're always looking for that secret. What's the secret to weight loss? Eat less and exercise. What's the secret to success? You got to do things that people don't want to do. There's no grand secret here. And when I say this, this isn't both sides are horrible. I think that's what people think sometimes of this show, particularly if they just read the description of the show, maybe on Twitter. Yeah, it's an unbiased characterization of both sides of the political spectrum. They think, oh, this guy is either a libertarian or this guy just says the Democrats and Republicans are both the same. That's not at all what the show is about. The show is not about saying Democrats and Republicans are the same. The show is not about being unbiased in the sense of not criticizing. That's not what unbiased is. Unbiased doesn't mean I don't criticize Donald Trump. Unbiased means I criticize Donald Trump when it's appropriate, and I compliment Donald Trump when it's appropriate. I criticize Joe Biden when it's appropriate, and I compliment Joe Biden when it's appropriate. Now, if you instantly said there's nothing to compliment either Joe Biden or Donald Trump about, herein lies the problem of why Democrats lose on issues. Commonality. What do you have in common with a Trump supporter? If you say absolutely nothing, you are on your way to understanding why Democrats lose on the issues. If you can't find anything in common with a Trump supporter or with a Republican, and again, I hate to have to always clarify this, I'm not talking about extremist. I'm not talking about hate-filled, extremist, violent people. I'm talking about your run-of-the-mill, everyday Trump supporter, your run-of-the-mill, everyday Republican. So if you can't find something in common with those people, that's your first problem. You must establish commonality. People will not listen to you. They will not buy what you're selling if they don't have anything in common with you. This is day one stuff in dealing with people, in relationships with people. They must find you relatable. You think of a car dealership. Larry can't sell any cars. Just can't sell any cars. He doesn't get it. He's a polished salesman. He's super smart, but he just can't seem to sell any cars. Randy, on the other hand, is selling the heck out of cars. Now, Randy's a slob. He's a mess. He's a mess. Cheats on his wife with porn stars, doesn't go to church, the whole bit. But Randy can sell the heck out of a car. Why is it? Well, if you watch Randy, when someone drives onto the lot in a beat up old Toyota, Randy is studying that person. Randy is finding out, what do I have in common with this person? And Randy says, I see you got a bumper sticker from East Side High, huh? You have a child that goes to East Side High? Oh, 2. No kidding. 3, myself, 2 sons and a daughter. Is Principal McGillicuddy still working over there? Oh, she's gone, is she? How about that? You know, when I was younger, I went to West Side High. East Side used to kick our butts in football. Any of your kids play football? For the next 20 minutes, Randy is talking to the customer about anything but selling a car. Anything but. Then Randy says, how long you had that Toyota? 12 years? No kidding. Wow. You sure got your money's worth out of that one, huh? How many miles on it? Whoa, you put 300,000 miles on that thing. How about that? Well, I'm selling Fords. Let's go in here and sit down and run a what if. How's that sound to you? Now, what does Larry do? The guy who can't sell any cars? He immediately walks out to the customer, looks at that old beat-up Toyota and says, man, you got to get out of that thing. Whoa, what a piece of junk. Good thing you came to see me. So Larry immediately starts off by insulting the customer because Larry doesn't understand. No matter how ugly that thing is that the customer has, no matter how many warts it has on it, people are comfortable with things that they've had for a long time. People are comfortable with things that they understand and they like. They appreciate the longevity that they've gotten out of things that they understand and they like and they are comfortable with. So the last thing you want to do is insult it. The last thing you want to do is make that person feel dumb for driving that Toyota for as long as they've driven it for. We can all agree that Donald Trump is one New York accent away from being Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies. Sitting in Mar-a-Lago, doing his gozintas, trying to figure out how much money he has. But that's why people love him. That's why the people that support him love him. And it's the reason why other people laugh at him. For what you laugh at him, they love him. And they told us as much when he ran for president. They told us why they loved him. He says what I'm thinking. He says what I'm thinking. What, Mexican a rapist? Not in so many words, but yes. So they had no problem admitting it. I like what this guy says. He says what I'm thinking. He's just like me. They told us the secret. And I'm guilty of it too. I laughed and said, really? He says what you're thinking? Guy says horrible things. I'm guilty of it too, but now I realize that's where his support comes from. He's relatable. He's like me. That's why they love him. And that's why he can sell them on anything. He can sell them anything while he's insulting them. It's not because he's got a better message that's going to make their lives better. That's not why he's able to sell these people on himself. He's relatable. Is Bernie Sanders relatable? Does a Trump supporter find anything in common with Bernie Sanders? Is Alexandria, I'm engaged to make someone's life miserable, Ocasio-Cortez, relatable? Can a Trump supporter find anything in common with Alexandria, ay Dios mío, Ocasio-Cortez? No, of course not. And so it doesn't matter that the message that they have, that what they're selling is a better message, is a winning message. It doesn't matter if Eric Swalwell has a better winning message. It doesn't matter if you try and shame people into doing the right thing on guns. It doesn't matter if you try to appeal to people's empathy on the right thing to do on guns. It doesn't matter if you try and convince people with reasoned logic when it comes to doing the right thing on guns. None of it matters if you're not relatable. They will not buy what you are selling. So that's step number 1. Be relatable. What's step number 2? Take your relatable butt where they are. I keep saying it. I apologize to my regular listeners that I got to keep repeating it over and over again. Take your butt where they are. You can't keep going to Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or George Snuffleupagus to get your message to the people you really need to be getting your message to. The people who watch and listen to those shows get it. They're on your side. You got to go to the people that aren't on your side, like Obama did with that town hall. But also, if you think back, if you remember, like Obama used to do when he was president. You know where Obama would go when he wanted to get the biggest audience? I think he did it like 2 years in a row. He went and did an interview before the Super Bowl, because that's when you get your real big numbers. You know, you get your big numbers with the State of the Union, but you also get your big numbers right before the Super Bowl airs. So who did Obama talk to when he did it, an interview 2 years right before the Super Bowl? Who did he talk to? Did he talk to Rachel Maddow? Did he talk to Anderson Cooper? Did he talk to Don Lemon? No. He talked to Bill O'Reilly, both years. Bill O'Reilly from Fox News at the time. Biden's sitting down with Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, I think you're going to have a friendly audience over there on the Jimmy Kimmel show. But I don't know that it's going to help. Step 1, be relatable, have something in common. Step 2, go where they are. They ain't coming to you. Step 3, have the right message. Have the right message. Now, in order to have the right message, you got to have listened to what they're saying. You got to have listened with respect to their concerns. Again, talked about this before. Now, sometimes the Democrats, they already have the right message. They've already got the right message. On the economy, the Democrats will tell you, look at the stock market. Look at the stock market under Democratic presidents versus Republican presidents. Democrats are always better. Look at jobs under Democratic presidents versus Republican presidents. Democrats are always better. 97%, they'll tell you, in the last several decades of jobs have been created under Democratic presidents. That's a great message on the economy. And yet, Democrats always lose in the polls on the issue of the economy. How is that possible? Because they ain't relatable. Because if you have the right message and you know you have the right message and you're losing, it's because you have the wrong messenger. That has to be what it is. If you know you have the correct message on guns, but you're losing on the issue of guns, it's because you don't have the right messenger. Now, once you get the right messenger, then you take your message. But again, you got to take it and you got to frame it in a way that's going to be accepted. Okay, fine. So I like your comparison group guy. I find you relatable. You've come to where I am. Now, what do you say? What do you say that's so different than everybody else has been saying? Well, the first thing I say is this. I ask the question. If Democrats are so determined to confiscate and take away people's guns, why does it seem a lot of people in conservative media have to come up with wild conspiracy theories about Democrats trying to take away guns? Why is that? Constantly with the wild conspiracy theories. Obama's buying up all the ammunition. Can't take the guns, so he's buying all the ammunition. Nope, not true. Conspiracy theory. The Trump administration actually bought more ammunition during their time than Obama did. These mass shootings are just a false flag. They're just a false flag operation to take away guns. Those kids that got shot down there at that high school in Florida, they were crisis actors. Crisis actors. The parents in Newtown, Connecticut, they were crisis actors. Would it really be necessary to come up with these ludicrous conspiracy theories if Democrats were really trying to take away your right to own a gun? On the flip side, if I tell you Republicans are trying to take away your right to vote, would I have to come up with a conspiracy theory? No. All I'd have to do is point to the hundreds of laws passed across all these states where Republicans are putting measures in place to make it harder for people to vote. I probably shouldn't yell at people from on Fox News, but you get my point? You get my point? If I'm trying to do something, you don't have to come up with ludicrous examples of me trying to do it to prove I'm trying to do it. All you got to do is say, look, it's right over there. You're doing it. You're doing it. Every Republican-led state legislator is doing it. They're passing laws to make it harder to vote. Where are the Democrats passing hundreds of laws to make it harder for you to get or keep a gun? Yeah, but any kind of law could be a slippery slope. Got to worry about that slippery slope. I even heard one guy call into a radio show and allude to, well, okay, if you pass these laws now, what about the next mass shooting? What laws are you going to try and pass after the next mass shooting? In 2014, Senate Republicans defeated a bill that would have funded states' efforts to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, and a law that would have banned those under temporary restraining orders from buying or possessing guns. That same year, 2014, the Republican-controlled House stopped a proposal that would have required serial numbers on homemade guns, such as those made with 3D printers. The bill never got out of committee. In 2015, the Republican-led Senate defeated a bill that would have banned people on a federal terrorism watch list from buying firearms. Opponents of the no-fly, no-buy bill noted the many errors and inconsistencies on the watch list. In 2015 and 2021, Democrats proposed making gun trafficking a federal crime and increased penalties for those who buy guns for felons and others prohibited from owning them, known as straw buyers. None of the proposals passed. In 2015 and 2016, after mass shootings in San Bernardino, California, and the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, San Bernardino, California, and the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, Democrats proposed applying background checks to gun shows and private sales where many gun transactions happen without scrutiny. All failed, as did weaker measures proposed by Republicans. A similar bill on gun shows also failed in 2017 after several subsequent proposals have gone nowhere against the NRA. Multiple attempts have been made to extend the 3-day maximum on federal background checks, after which sales are allowed to proceed. The gunman who killed 9 members of a Bible study group at a black church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015 was able to purchase his handgun thanks to this loophole. None of the bills have passed. A bill introduced by Democrats in 2017 after the mass shooting at a country music festival in Las Vegas would have required gun manufacturers to equip their product with available technologies, ensuring that only the proper owner could fire the gun. This would keep children and other family members from firing them as well, and render them useless if stolen. It failed. So you're telling me, as a reasonable, rational person, any of those laws would have been a slippery slope to taking away guns, to repealing the Second Amendment? You're telling me that those laws, smart guns, not selling guns to people who have a restraining order against them, not selling guns to terrorists, you're telling me that we're going to go from that to convincing enough members of Congress to repeal the Second Amendment, to start confiscating guns? I'm reading up on this smart gun technology. This is from almost 10 years ago. The first prototype was developed, one of the first prototypes was developed by some 19-year-old kid like 8 years ago. Obama gave a speech 6 years ago about this smart gun technology of fingerprint identification. Obama said, hey, if we can unlock our iPhones with a fingerprint identification, how about guns that can only be unlocked and used with fingerprint identification? Immediately, the gun lobby came out against it. Why? Well, that iPhone, it doesn't work all the time. That fingerprint identification on the iPhone doesn't work all the time. You don't want that happening with your gun. Guns never jam. Guns never misfire. You better keep your gun clean or it might not work. But they just immediately, how can you come out against that? How can you come out against at least developing it? You know, technology takes a while to perfect, but how can you come out against saying we're going to put a security measure on these guns, a fingerprint identification, so that if it's stolen, if a child gets their hands on it, if someone who wants to commit suicide that doesn't own the gun, that lives in your home, gets their hands on it, they won't be able to use it. How could you come out against that? But the gun lobby immediately came out against it, and conservative media was right there with them. I could play you the clip. I'm not going to, because this is starting to run too long. 380,000 guns a year are stolen in the United States. I had to check that. When I first read it, I said, there's no way. 380,000 guns? So I verified it through several sources. If you want to get right down to it, it's actually 250,000 instances of gun theft and 380,000 guns a year stolen in the U.S. So some instances, obviously, more guns are stolen. More than one gun is stolen. Do you think those guns may be used in crimes? A stolen gun? Yeah, probably. Every major U.S. city has some sort of stolen vehicle task force. They want to try and interdict as quickly as possible when a vehicle is stolen. Why? Because stolen vehicles are used in crimes. Common sense. Stolen vehicles are used in crimes. Don't you think it would be smart to do something about 380,000 stolen guns in this country? Yeah, but if you pass laws, all you're going to do is make it harder for law-abiding citizens to get a gun. Only the criminals will have guns if you pass laws. It'll make it harder for law-abiding citizens. You're doggone right. You're doggone right. It's time for Democrats to stop being afraid of that whole law-abiding citizen argument. Yeah, I want to make it a little bit harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns. Why? Because everyone's a law-abiding citizen until they're not, until they get drunk, until they get in a fight with their wife or husband, until they get into a road rage incident, until they snap mentally. A lot of people are law-abiding citizens. The Second Amendment says you have the right to bear arms. I don't know where it says, and we got to make it as easy as possible for you to get it. Where does it say that in the Second Amendment? If you're a law-abiding citizen, it's got to be as easy as possible for you to get a gun. I don't think it says that. I don't think there's anything wrong with slowing the process down a little bit. At least slow it down until you can predict the future and tell me which law-abiding citizens are going to snap and shoot up a school and which ones aren't. Until you can tell me that, we got to slow the process down, even for law-abiding citizens. Now, this is going to be a little bit rough for Fox News, because, again, I'm pretending that I'm a relatable guy on Fox News, but I'll say it anyway. In Japan, with a population of 127 million people, they had a gun death rate of 0.02 per 100,000 citizens. And that's important, 100,000 citizens. I'm going to get back to that. I'm going to get back to that on a point. Don't let me forget. 0.02 per 100,000 citizens. I think the U.S. is 10.27 or something like that. So obviously much higher per 100,000 citizens. For Japanese citizens to purchase a gun, they must attend all-day classes, pass a written exam, and complete a shooting range test scoring at least 95% accuracy. Candidates will also receive a mental health evaluation performed at a hospital and will have a comprehensive background check done by the government. The class and exam must be retaken every 3 years. That's Japan. You can buy dirty women's panties out of a vending machine in Japan. I'm not joking. Japan has some of the strangest fetishes of any country in the world, but they don't have a gun fetish. I don't think any of that is unreasonable to ask for law-abiding citizens in the United States of America to get a gun. Maybe we'd have to tweak it. We're a much bigger country. We have 200 million more people in this country. A lot of people want to get guns. So maybe the criteria would be different depending on what gun you may want to get. Maybe the criteria would be different based on your background, things you've done in the past. If you were disruptive, perhaps in school, maybe there should be screening for you that may not be necessary for other people. Again, it's all open for discussion. It's all open for discussion, but it's not unreasonable. It's not an unreasonable discussion to have any more than it's unreasonable to have a discussion about body armor and extended clips. That's the next thing I got to address. Body armor and extended clips. Why is that something that's off the table? Why is extended clips off the table? If you want me to be the good guy with a gun, because that's the narrative I got to address now if I'm on Fox News. If you want me to be the good guy with the gun, give me a fighting chance. At least give me a fighting chance. The best chance I got to stop a shooter, to be the good guy that stops a shooter, is when he stops to reload. If he's wearing body armor and he's got 100 bullets to my 10, give me a fighting chance if you want me to be the good guy with the gun. Why is that unreasonable? Next, criminals aren't going to follow any of your rules. Criminals don't follow rules. Criminals are not going to go for background checks. Criminals are not going to go for health screening. Criminals aren't going to take this gun exam because criminals don't do any of those things, and criminals still get their hands on guns. How? How do criminals get their hands on guns? Well, I told you one way is to steal them. Don't want to do anything about that. Don't want to use smart gun technology. But the other way that criminals get their hands on guns is from law-abiding citizens. That's the other way criminals get their hands on guns, because law-abiding citizens buy them and then sell them to criminals. Come on, reasonable, rational Second Amendment people. Think about it. How do the criminals get their hands on guns? I don't care if it passes through 6 criminal hands before it gets to the street. At some point, the gun had to be purchased legally by a law-abiding citizen. Has to. I don't think the gun manufacturers are driving trucks and just dumping them into the street. I don't think criminals are running into the gun factories and just stealing crates of guns from the factories. So how are the guns getting to the street? How are they getting into criminals' hands? From law-abiding citizens. Quote unquote, law-abiding citizens. Because right now, it's not illegal to do it. It's illegal to sell guns to criminals. I think, maybe, I don't know. But it's not illegal to go to a gun show and buy 5, 10, 15 guns. That's not illegal. Are you a gun dealer? No. But you need all those guns? Yeah. Okay. And you're not selling them? No. But they are. Probably not even paying taxes. Because who pays taxes on illegal transactions? And we can't do anything about that. We can't pass a law. It's been tried and stopped by Republicans to pass a law against that. That makes sense to you? Reasonable? Logical? Fox News watchers? Of course not. Of course not. But the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, always with the Second Amendment. That's the next thing I got to address. The Second Amendment was written, and I got to be quick with this. I'm going to shorten this up because we're getting towards the end here, getting to that 40-minute limit. The Second Amendment was written as a compromise, just like a lot of things in the Bill of Rights. When the Constitution was written, Thomas Jefferson felt like there wasn't enough focus on the individual, on individual rights. Then came the Bill of Rights. Second Amendment was a compromise to make sure the federal government and a standing military by the federal government could not oppose a tyrannical will on individuals, on the states. That's the reason why the Second Amendment was written. The Second Amendment wasn't written so that Joe could have an AR-15 in 2022. That's not the purpose of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was written to give individuals the ability to fight back, if necessary, against the tyrannical federal government. Now, at the time, if it became necessary to fight back against the federal government for individuals, for states, it was a pretty equal, fair fight for the most part because it was a musket against a musket. Well, that's not the case anymore. Unless, of course, you have a tank or a Predator drone. I have an AC-130 Spectre gunship, but I can't afford to put gas in it, so what use is it? What use is it for individuals to try and fight back against the military and the federal government? There is no use, and there is no question. No question. The Second Amendment needs to be updated. This is where I get myself thrown right off of Fox News, doing what I said I wasn't going to do. Now I'm lecturing people. But all right, they throw me off after this. The Second Amendment needs to be updated. There's no question. You can go back and you can find quotes. Hang on. Where's the quote from this one guy? Hang on. I'm going to read it to you. Okay, here it is. Virginia Delegate Edmund Randolph, one of the founding fathers. Edmund Randolph. Edmund Randolph, never heard of him. He was one of the 5 men tasked with drafting the Constitution. He said, quote, "Insert essential principles only, lest the operations of government should be clogged by rendering those provisions permanent and unalterable, which ought to be accommodated to times and events." Man, they talk complicated back then. Insert essential principles only, just put in what you need, lest the operations of government should be clogged. Government will get all screwed up if they think the provisions are permanent and unalterable. They should be accommodated to the times and the events. So in other words, keep it basic. This junk is going to get updated anyway. Now, I don't know if Edmund Randolph said that because he was a genius and just understood you have to have flexibility in the Constitution, or if he just wanted to knock it out and go get drunk. And I say that because Edmund Randolph had some scandals I'm not going to get into, but he might have been a traitor too. Let's not get into that. But anyway, he's not the only person who felt like, of the founding fathers, who felt like the Constitution was not supposed to be flexible. They all agreed the Constitution was supposed to be flexible. The Second Amendment can be flexible. The Second Amendment can be updated. If you're a reasonable and rational person, you would agree the Constitution and the Bill of Rights would look slightly different if women were in the room when it was written, if black people were in the room when it was written, if Hispanic people were in the room when it was written, if gay people were in the room when it was written, if Native Americans were in the room when it was written. Am I supposed to say indigenous people? You know what I mean. The Constitution would look slightly different, which is why we've had to make changes to it along the way, because none of those people were in the room or had input. So if you would agree that that probably led to some bias in the Constitution, then you could agree that the Constitution is not inflexible and needs to be updated along with the Second Amendment. I got to start to wrap this up. And now I'm getting back to being on Fox News again. I went off the rails a little bit there. Listen, I got to speak my mind. But getting back to Fox News, and I should have really started out with what I agree with from the Fox News crowd, from Republicans, from conservatives. I do agree Democrats need to be a little bit more careful with their language, with everything, with all their issues. Particularly Joe Biden. He's got to get it together. He slips up a lot. We all know that. He has his gaffes. But you just can't come out and say, back in the day, people weren't allowed to own cannons. You say it once, Joe, okay, but I come to find out he said that same thing back in 2020. Back in the day, people couldn't own cannons. It's not true, Joe. You just can't make stuff up. And when you say a dumb thing once, don't say it twice. I said to my wife one time, what's your problem? Would you have a bowl of Grouchy Flakes this morning? Well, based on the reaction, I knew, don't say that again. That was a mistake. So Democrats do have to be a little more careful in their language and be accurate. There's a lot said about the NRA and the gun lobby. It might surprise some people to find out in recent years, the NRA has actually not been a huge contributor. The NRA is kind of going bankrupt. If they're haven't declared bankruptcy already, they haven't been giving a ton of money to Congress in the past few years, but they still have that influence. They still have that influence because all the Republicans want that A+, A grade from the NRA. So if you ask me, the influence is coming much more from the people, not from the gun lobby, but from the people. So that's who you got to focus on. And that's who, as I say, you got to talk to. It's coming from the people. The influence on the Republican politicians is coming from the people. I said I was going to circle back to this. The per 100,000 people. Now, again, keep in mind, this is not criticism of Democrats. Okay? This is, you got to make sure you're accurate in what you say. Because trust me, if you go and talk to the Republicans, go to Fox News, you're going to get fact-checked. You know that. And everything you say is going to be dissected the next day on conservative media. So you must be accurate. If you go on and say, this doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, this sort of thing doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, you better be accurate on it. Because the fact of the matter is, Brazil has more gun deaths than the United States. In 2019, there were 250,000 gun deaths worldwide. Of all of those gun deaths, over 250,000, 66% occurred in 6 countries: Brazil, U.S., Venezuela, Mexico, India, and Colombia. Countries with the highest total gun deaths in 2019, Brazil, 49,436. The U.S., 37,038. Venezuela, 28,515. This comes from the World Population Review, gun deaths by country. Now, what's interesting, if you adjust for population, just looking at violent gun deaths in 2019, the U.S. drops way down. Drops way down. How can that be? If we're second in the world in total gun deaths, how can we drop way down when it comes to violent gun deaths? Well, because 2/3 of the gun deaths in America are from suicide. 2/3 from suicide. Now, if you adjust for population and violent gun deaths, El Salvador, number 1, Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, Brazil, Bahamas, Honduras, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Mexico. The United States of America, the mainland, is not even in the top 10 worldwide when you adjust for population. Now, what's this guy doing now? What's he trying to excuse the gun deaths in this country? What's he trying to say? We don't have a gun problem in this country? No. If you let down your defenses and listen to me, I'm trying to teach you something. Adjust for population and something magical happens. The argument of, well, look at Chicago. Look at all the gun deaths in Chicago. New York, they have strict gun laws, and they're not doing any better. Illinois, they have strict gun laws, and they're not doing any better. Now, the typical Democratic answer to that is, well, because people can bring the guns in from next door, from Indiana. The guns can flood in from another state, which is true. But how about if I gave you a better answer? How about if I told you that it, in fact, is true that the states with tougher gun laws have less gun violence, and the states with weaker gun laws have more gun violence? How about if I could tell you and prove to you that that was true? Isn't that even a better answer? States with the most gun death rate per 100,000 people. Number 1, Alaska. Number 2, Mississippi, New Mexico, Wyoming, Alabama, Louisiana, Missouri, South Carolina, Arkansas, Montana, Oklahoma, Tennessee. States with the least or lower amount of gun deaths. Number 50, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, Rhode Island, Connecticut, California, Minnesota, Iowa. Democrats, can you get off your talking points long enough to recognize that you have a winning message? The states with tougher gun laws have less gun deaths. The states with weaker gun laws have more gun deaths when you adjust for population. The way anything should be done. And I'm fair and consistent. I say the same thing every time Bernie Sanders says, why can't we do things like they do in so-and-so country? And I say because America is not so-and-so country. America has 330 million people. So-and-so country has 85 million. You have to make an apples-to-apples comparison. So when you make an apples-to-apples comparison on gun death and gun violence, you got to look at the population of each individual state. Common sense. I got to wrap this up. This is not the kind of podcast that I had intended on doing. Podcasts that reference or have to do with mass shootings. But we are where we are. I want to talk about so much other stuff. I want to talk about how Janet Yellen said she didn't know that, she got it wrong on inflation. Didn't see it coming. That's like Santa Claus saying, Christmas snuck up on me this year. I didn't see it coming. Really, Santa? It's your whole raison d'etre. I hate to throw the French around like that, but it's your whole reason for being, Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, to see and predict when inflation is coming. She should have listened to the show. I said it a year ago. I talked about it a year ago. Heck, I tweeted about it back in December. I tweeted about the supply and demand issue leading to inflation back in December. And somebody tweeted back at me, supply and demand doesn't have anything to do with inflation. But boy, I guess I missed the meeting. Since when does supply and demand not have anything to do with inflation? So I'd like to talk about that. Did you see those Olympians are suing the FBI? Good for them. If you watched that hearing, I guess it was maybe a year or two ago, if you heard how the FBI just blew it with that guy that was abusing those girls, Larry Nassar, just totally blew that. The FBI agents. I think they've all resigned or been fired, one or the other, but they were recently acquitted, or not even acquitted. I don't even think they went through a trial, but the Justice Department decided there would be no charges against any of those FBI agents that completely blew that case. The girls testified how they had gone to the FBI numerous times and reported the abuse that they were going through with Larry Nassar, and the FBI did nothing. They actually made the girls, according to them, feel like they were pestering the FBI. So I don't know if I'll talk about that on the show, but it's worth reading up on that story. It'll shock you. Here's the last thing I'll say. Let me wrap up. Here's the last thing I'll say. I entitled this show, Why Did Democrats Lose on Issues? And obviously the focus right now is the gun issue. But it could be any issue. It could be the January 6th issue, which, by the way, I did watch some of the hearing last night, and I stand corrected. I felt like this January 6th committee was a waste of time. I stand corrected on it. It's not a waste of time. I don't know if it will lead to any charges, any convictions, any jail time for anyone, you know who, but not a waste of time. I'll look to talk about that some more in the future. But the Democrats, as I say, struggle on issues that they shouldn't struggle on. And one of the big reasons is people have been convinced, once again, of a dirty word that trumps everything. A dirty word that trumps anything and everything. Shame, logic, common sense, decency, and that word is mandate. That word is mandate. The conservative media, Republicans, have been very effective in telling people that any mandate is an attempt to take away your freedom, an attempt to control you. If Democrats are going to win on issues, they must defeat that narrative. They must defeat the mandate narrative. Don't do it the way you think you're going to do it, by mandating people to not believe in mandates. I know that's what the Democrats are going to try and do. You have to make people understand mandates exist, they exist for a reason, and they exist for law and order. You cannot be the law and order party or consider yourself the law and order, Constitution-loving party and agree with what went on January 6th. You can't have it both ways. Mandates exist for a reason. And if you think that you can't be mandated, you're not going to be mandated, you shouldn't be mandated, you might want to wake up and smell the coffee and recognize the government mandates everything in your life. Everything in your life, for good or for bad. The government mandates when you wake up and go to sleep. It's called daylight savings time. You just try showing up to work an hour late half the year and an hour early the other half of the year and see how that works out for you. We do and should enjoy a lot of freedoms in this country, but freedom to be a jackass ain't one of them. Thanks for listening. Sorry if I talk fast. Just trying to get through it. You know how it is. Got a lot to say. 9,000 thoughts I had in my head this week. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate, as always, you investing your time. I appreciate it if you share the show. You can find the show Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, Pandora, anywhere you get podcasts. You can go to the link of the show itself, copy and paste. You can go to an episode, copy and paste. Any comments you have can be directed to my Instagram, which I think is called Comparison Group Podcast. I have no idea. I have no idea what the name of my Instagram account is. On Twitter, I'm at comparison_show. At comparison_show. So if you're on Twitter, you can direct comments to me there. As I say, I appreciate any comments I get. I'll answer them. Good or bad, I'll answer them. Not afraid of you. Not afraid of your comments. Not afraid of your questions. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.